Hi everyone, Danny Bader here, and I'm excited to welcome you back to yet another episode of our podcast, 11 Minutes to Inspiration, where we offer you information, some interviews with some really cool people, and simply observations for your consideration that are all designed to support you in being inspired to continue creating a happy and fulfilling life. Because after all, that's why we're here, right? Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of our newly rebranded podcast called Back to Life. And you'll see why we switched it from 11 Minutes to Inspiration. Our first guest on this episode is Davey, who I've known for a long, long time, and his last name is?
Uosikkinen. Say that 10 times.
Yeah, sometimes a mistake. What'd you say?
I said my best one, my favorite rendition of my last name, or version of my last name is, I'm sick of him.
I'm sick of him, yeah. Davey Uosikkinen.
Yeah.
So many of you probably know Davey from his days with the Hooters as a drummer. He's still playing, but just has a very, very unique journey on his back to life story. So we're going to get in there, and I think you'll find some seeds of wisdom that you'll start to apply in your own life. So Davey, thanks a lot, man. Always good to see you, hang out.
Good to see you too, Dan.
Give us a quick little snapshot as to who you are, where you grew up.
Well, I grew up not too far from here. I grew up in Levittown,
Right.
Oak Creek Falls.
Right.
My parents were immigrants from Finland, first generation American. My first language was Finnish. For your Finns out there, very few of you.
What did you say?
I just said, I speak Finnish.
Okay,
Minä rakastan sinua. I love you. But I also always tell people that, look, it never would have learned the language if it wasn't the fact that what I heard, as I was born. My parents didn't speak English. They learned English as I learned English.
Growing up.
So in a lot of ways, that was like, I didn't realize, a kind of a unique situation. I grew up in Mill Creek Falls, a lot of Irish Catholic families working at the steel mill, and my dad was a construction worker, and it was, I don't know, I had a happy childhood, but later on, as you want to fit in, when you find out that I'm speaking Finglish, which I like to call it, English and Finnish.
Right.
It's a little odd. But
Right.
I remember running home from school one day, or from the neighborhood, because somebody called me a communist, and I went. My mom said, "You don't even know what a communist is."
Yeah.
In her way.
Yes.
And later on, it's funny, but people have their ideals or ideas on what you ought to be, and
Sure.
And I just wanted to fit in, like everybody else, man. Yeah.
Brothers and sisters growing up?
I have two sisters.
Two sisters.
Two
yeah,
sisters.
Cool. So then high school, where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school at Woodrow. It's now a Truman High School, and it used to be Woodrow Wilson. And I visited there not too long ago because my buddy Michael Sokoloff asked me if I would do the keynote.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, on their graduation, and I said, "You better check and see if I graduated."
That's
first.
right.
Because I was playing back then, and all
Right.
I wanted, once I discovered that I could play the drums and I wanted to play the drums, school became something that was on the back burner.
Sure. Sure.
So that was one of those.
Well,
things. But
education, right? Education was always there for you.
Listen, education is a really important thing. I became a real believer when I started studying in New York with Joe Casadas.
Sure.
I started taking lessons, but I had other drum teachers in the neighborhood, but I wasn't quite as serious as I became later on when I started being in bands that were serious. When I started connecting with other people that really had a vision, like I did early on, was
Right.
okay, I wanted to always make records. They were for some reason that was always really important to me. I just saw that was the goalpost.
Right.
I had a destination.
Right.
And early on,
Right. That vision,
for whatever
right?
reason. Well, it's changed a lot for young musicians these days because the business of music is different than it used to be.
Sure.
And then there had record companies, and you had somebody telling you letting you into the gate or not. So early on, I always wanted to do that, and thank God that it worked out for me.
But you didn't play drums initially, right? What was your first instrument?
My first instrument was trumpet.
Trumpet.
And I didn't want to play trumpet, but
Yeah.
I wish I did, because I always look to my horn players and I ask them, how much can you get a trumpet for? Because I want to play again.
You wanna play trumpet
At 63, I still want to play the trumpet, and I play some other instruments now, but
Sure.
not like I play the drums. For some reason, the drumming was always something that felt like I was home. It took me away from anything that was feeling bad. Drumming always was
Right.
just always been good to me.
Right. What was your first experience with drumming?
Uh,
A neighbor's house or something?
yeah,
Neighbor?
my buddy. I had a friend of mine that could play guitar, and he had these really cool parents that had a great record collection,
Right.
and we would play records, and he could play "What I Say" by Ray Charles, and he had a snare drum and a cymbal, and I could play.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Right.
He said, "You're our drummer."
That's it. You're hired.
And I was hired. I want to play the guitar.
Yeah.
But I ended up
Drums
playing
are cool, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Drums
I'm
are
one
cool.
of these guys that like every instrument is cool. I just love
Yeah.
the fact that you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, it's always been. So let's spin. You got into the Hooters. When did that? How did that all
Well,
happen?
the Hooters, interesting thing. I was playing in a bar because that's where we worked all the time. Bars,
Sure.
or we didn't call them lounges, or well, I guess we were lounges.
No, I remember all the cabarets.
Right, yeah.
Right,
But this
the
is way
Troc.
back. It was 1980, and Eric and Rob already made records. They were making records with a band called Baby Grand and
Right.
doing session work and things like that. And they had this band called Baby Grand, which was a really great band. They had Rick Morato on drums, one of my favorite drummers, David Prater, really great players.
Right.
And one night they walked into this bar where I was playing drums with a band called Hot Property, and they invited me to do a session with them.
Great.
Eric had an opportunity to audition for a film. I forget The Idolmaker, with Ray Sharkey.
Oh yeah. I
And
remember that.
I recorded 4 songs with him. Like I think one of them was "Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood." We did a Badfinger song. I forget which one that is, and 2 other tunes.
Right.
And that was like his audition tape. And then I did that, and then I did. A couple weeks later, they asked me if I would come play with them, and I played some songs. I think I might have played "All You Zombies"
Is that
with
right?
them back with that
Yeah.
time. A rendition of it.
Sure.
Because that was always a work in progress for many years, actually. And then they invited me to be in the Hooters. They said we weren't called the Hooters then. It was just they were putting a band together. And I remember the day they even told me we were going to call the band the Hooters when I was
Right.
walking in the parking lot. And I
Right.
went, how do I tell my friends I'm in a band called the
Yeah, right. How does that work?
That worked, but that didn't
It
work.
worked out.
It was before the restaurants.
It
but
worked out pretty well, I'll say.
oh
right?
yeah, man.
And I know I certainly enjoyed coming
man,
to see
it's-
you guys.
Next year will be 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah, it's been such a ride, and they're such amazing musicians. How that happened to
They
me,
really
I don't
are,
know.
man.
Well, what
And
even
Andy,
makes
I know Andy
Oh!
from Eddie when Eddie played with Andy.
You're talking about Andy King.
Yeah.
Well, Andy,
Oh,
you know what?
yeah.
Here, a wild thing is Andy King just played with me within the Pocket at the Keswick Theater,
Oh, it's
and
such a good groove.
And
that
I
guy.
was working with Cliff Hillis yesterday, mixing those recordings. And
Yeah.
Andy's a spectacular singer, artist in his own right. He really spent really, when you look back on the history, I think it was 3 years he was with us.
Is that right? Yeah.
And then before that, it was Bobby Woods, and then Rob Miller for a short period.
Right, right.
Andy and Fran Smith has been with us for 30-some years.
Wow.
And next year we do our
Yeah,
40th anniversary tour.
Andy's good. He's got a good heart too.
A
He's just
good
a
guy.
good dude, man.
Yeah.
Good dude.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
cool.
glad we reconnected in a musical way, because it's important to me to have those kinds of positive relationships. He's a
yeah.
positive guy. He's a
Yeah.
he's a good soul, as you
Yeah,
say.
you got it.
And
got
whatever, sometimes as in bands you bump heads. It's like a family.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you bump heads, and then look back at some of the things that you get upset about are some of the stupidest things in the
yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And then you make up
Yeah.
and you realize how important this person is to your life.
Yeah.
And Rob and Eric, they're my bosses. I still look at them as my bosses. I have utmost respect for what they do. And I try to, it's later, it's business, and I go, okay, there's the hierarchy,
Right.
but we have a special thing
Oh,
together.
you do, yeah, you do. So the Hooters. When did you guys start really taking off?
Well,
What was that
it
year?
always felt to me
Right.
like it was always it was always doing this, and because I was a bit younger than those guys and inexperienced, so everything that we were doing, we put the band together in '80. We played the JFK Stadium in 1982 with the Who.
Yeah, right.
The Who.
Right. Oh my God.
I'm playing drums and Carlos Santana. It was
Yeah,
the
I was
Who.
thinking.
It was the Who. Carlos Santana. The Clash.
Oh, yeah.
And the Hooters.
Yeah.
And I remember I was playing. And I turned around and Carlos Santana sitting behind my monitor,
Yeah.
watching me play.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh
You
my
shit
God.
yourself, right?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So it was just an incredible feeling to do that.
Oh, man.
So that was early on '82. And then, these guys started writing songs. We went through as many bands do. And looking back, Eric and Rob were asked to work on Cyndi Lauper's record, and they wrote songs. Rob wrote time after time,
yeah.
And then at that time we got signed to Columbia Records, which is Columbia Records, huge.
Sure.
And then, you know, like the way if Columbia likes you, they introduced us to agents, and then they put us on tour, and we started working with bands like, you know, Don Henley. I encouraged Don Henley to get up on stage and play it like you're playing your drums, you know.
Yeah, man.
Which someone else told me later when I was learning guitar. Tommy Conwell told me that.
Oh, yeah.
But I told Don that, you know, just get up, you know, because he was nervous. I could see how nervous he was.
Yeah.
Fox Theater in St. Louis.
You mean from when he was out from the kit and he was out front now?
Yeah, he went from like, that's a whole.
You know, the safety of your.
Oh
of
man,
your
trust me,
tom-tom rack.
I know that deal, man. Like I'm, you know, like I don't know if it ever happened. I've been writing a lot myself, and I'm a bit of a poet. I don't want to call myself a poet, but I write poetry. I write poetry, believe it or not.
You are a poet.
And I write, and someday I want to put it. I'm working on some music, so you know, that's a aspirations, a goal to do, but it is something that I lost my train of thought. Excuse me. What were we talking about?
Stepping out front, Don Henley.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
man.
it. So it's a scary thing in some ways, because it's one thing to stay in your room
Stepping
and
into
write,
your greatness,
and
so
then
to
you
speak,
walk,
right,
or
man?
your crappiness. You know, it's like,
yeah.
am I? Because what happens is you may think you're good, but the real judge is always the audience.
Oh,
that's,
sure, no
that's
question.
the judge.
No
they're
question.
going to let you know whether they like you or not.
Yeah.
I think that's why I play drums, because I felt like I really could move people when I played.
Right.
And I like that feeling. I was like, if
Yeah.
I watch, you know, I like, you know, see a pretty girl, all of a sudden you're playing or dancing. I'm like,
Oh yeah. Well, you guys are. That's
I'm
it,
helping
man.
to do that.
It's all. You're laying down the beat, right?
Yeah.
It's all coming off.
Yeah,
of that.
absolutely.
Good. So the Hooters, with all of its success, though, you and I have certainly chatted about, brought some challenges, huh?
Ooh.
It's biggest challenge.
Well, you know, it's not a secret. I mean, I had a drug addiction for many years, and and that really wasn't a byproduct of the Hooters. Although it was like putting gas on a fire when you start. Because my biggest problem was always my head. It was never really the fact that, you know, if you put down the drugs, and all of a sudden you're left with your brain. And I always kid people. I said I had a bad head. Some days it still can be pretty bad, but I don't mess with that stuff.
Right.
And for years, you know, I don't want to say it was my neighborhood, but I got into drugs, and it took me to a really bad place, and I had an addiction for years, and it got pretty severe. And in 1986, I got sober. I got off of the heroin, and I got off all that, and then, you know, I had to fly right. I had to kind of live by the program rules.
Sure, right.
Because I wasn't a big rule guy,
Right.
and I had to live by a system, which, you know, at the time, AA was where I went to help me. You know, I had to find, like, you know, some strength in a higher power, do all that kind of stuff, and it wasn't always by my choice. It was by like a sponsor telling me, this is where you do it. Sure. And, you know, I was always a guy who's like, you know.
Yeah,
but then when I started following rules, all of a sudden, like anything else, it felt good. I felt better.
Little clarity.
And in my life, since that June 26th, of putting down you know, look, I had challenges after that as well.
Sure.
You know, I never realized
It's
that
a journey, man.
pills would be a problem.
That's why we call it back to life, right? Every day we come back to life.
And you never know, man. There's always something out there that's trying to get you.
Right.
And you got to be aware. Like, that's why a positive attitude is such a big thing, because there's a lot of negativity out there, man.
Yeah, there is.
And if you can't stay above that or ignore that, which is difficult to do, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
I really believe you got to have
and you
an
said
attitude.
right there, be aware, I think, which is so key.
Yeah.
Every day something's out to get you, right? And sometimes it's our own head.
Our head,
Right.
and then judgments and people that you know
Sure.
are thinking. You know, I used to, and this isn't my own saying. I got this from AA. It's like, normal people walk their dogs, and alcoholic drug addicts walk their heads. Which I always thought was a good one, you know, because you know, and if I'm in my head, I'm in my own I'm behind enemy lines.
Right.
Now, that can change by you know, doing things over years, repetitiveness in the sense that you're doing positive things, because then your life changes.
You do any journaling?
I write.
your thoughts?
Yeah.
I mean,
I do.
Yeah, me
not as
too,
much
man.
these days, but I do, and I think that's a really great thing. I'm big on putting stuff down,
Right.
and I reading something every day that's a positive message. I think that's a really great thing. There's some great books out there, you
Yeah.
know, the 24-hour-a-day book, you know, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, but I think that it's really about your attitude, you know.
Yeah, it is.
And I found that, you know, I have friends that are dealing with medical issues, friends that have cancer, that the better attitudes always fight that fight
Yeah.
a much better
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, you know, I have a buddy of mine from college just this morning. I texted him, battling cancer.
Oh.
And, you know, he's got some stuff going on with his levels, and they might take him out of some study or something. But he said, I know I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know how yet.
Yeah.
So
They'll find a way one day.
I told him that my morning prayers were over, but I was going to have another session of morning prayers for it, man.
Man, good for you.
But I said to him that that's it, man. If you just hold that, you know, I talk a lot about vision or outcomes or goals. You know, if you hold that, don't worry about too much how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Just know the what, and then that's where, as you talked about, you know, there's something bigger than us. I know that for sure.
Because there's, you know, I became a believer in that because of the fact that sometimes when I need it the most, something appears in my life. That where did that come from? You know, and it's, am I going to be aware of that
Yeah,
or
man.
not? Like I was big on, you know, my choices when I was addicted were always the bad one. I would always take the wrong door, or take wrong choice. But since then. And I rely on people. Like I got a great wife who really does give me great feedback. Sometimes when I don't want it,
Sure,
you know,
no,
about
she's
when
a
I
strong
need
lady.
it. Yeah, she is. You know, and other people in my life that are just you know, can-do people.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's a huge thing. Your support system.
That's
you know,
it,
Dan,
man.
You know,
That's
you've
it.
got a lovely wife. You got a family. You know,
Yep.
you know after what you went through. You know, there's things that you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, who am I going to surround my wagons with, man?
You got it.
Who's going to circle my wagons with? You know, that's a circle.
Yeah, it's so key to have that support network too.
Oh, man.
You know, I always ask people, I say, think about the 5 people in your life that you really love. They love you. They're there for you. You know, they're going to call bullshit on you too. They're not, they're not the smoke blowers, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I'll say, think about those 5 people, and then raise your hand if you should spend more time with them.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, 90% of the hands in every room go up.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Well, what gets in the way, right? Emails, busyness, all this stuff.
Yeah,
And
no
it's
question.
so important
No question about that.
to stay connected.
I studied. Well, I mentioned Joe Casadas because I only studied with him 2 years, but he became such an important man in my life because you said he didn't take any shit. If I would sometimes, because I was playing with the Hooters at the time early on, and I remember I'd show up and say, yeah, but I was playing like 5. He didn't want to hear it.
No.
He said, don't waste my time.
Yeah, it's so
You know,
good.
and I'm giving him money. He said,
Right,
don't waste my
right,
time.
right.
My time is like.
And he
I
loved
don't-
you tremendously.
Oh,
right?
I gave
that's where it
I gave
comes
him a
from.
platinum record. We had a platinum record, and he taught some really great drummers.
Yeah.
He had the Modern Drum Shop in New York, and I was so happy to. And he was so great to me. About 5-6 years ago, my wife, maybe it's longer than that, set up a surprise me on my birthday, and I had lunch with him one night in New York, one day in New York. Him and his wife, who's now passed away, and it was such a nice time. He was 80 some years old at the time, and he says, I'm 86 years old and I don't take a pill.
So he said, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a cool thing,
Oh,
man.
my God.
And he was like, when I hugged him, he felt like he could
Solid, huh?
could kick your ass.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, kick your ass.
You got some good people.
He was
And you
great.
play a lot with Kenny, right? Bass player?
You mean Kenny Aronson?
Yeah, so I see Kenny a lot. I see him with you.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't gotten out to a show yet, but I
Oh,
will.
Kenny's
But I also
awesome.
see him playing with John Eddie when John Eddie's around in town, yeah.
Yeah, John's great. I got to get John on my podcast sometime.
Yeah,
you
you should, yeah. He's in Nashville, is that where he is?
Yeah, he's a songwriter and he's doing great. But Kenny is just he's out with the Yardbirds right now.
Is
playing.
he
Yeah,
really?
he just started a tour today. He starts
Wow.
today, and he's a remarkable guy. And he's a survivor, cancer survivor. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
that.
no, I didn't.
He's a cancer survivor.
Wow,
And,
I know he's got a good energy to him, man.
and he's up. He's
And
older,
when you peel
he's
that
older
onion
than
back,
me.
when you peel that onion back, there's usually a history, right, man?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's great. Kenny.
We
So-
both do. He's been through the wars and he's
Yeah.
survived. And he's an amazing musician, good bass player.
Yeah, good guy, too,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
You got any rituals in your day? You talked about rituals. Anything in the morning when you wake up?
Well, I spend a minute, maybe longer. I don't really time it, but I kind of try to get a little bit a silence for a little bit
Right, be
in the
still,
morning.
right.
I ask him for help,
Good.
or her.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
yeah.
like that. I am, and then that's about it as far as my ritual in the morning, you know. And then I'm a swimmer, so I go swim.
Right.
And I was just telling my wife how for some reason, when I do that, I go to a weird place.
Yeah.
Not weird place. I just go to a place that everything's out.
Well, the endorphins are coming out now, right? Your thoughts are going. Yeah, that's cool. We were gymnasts in high school or something.
I was pretty good too. I mean, I was young, and it was one of those things that I didn't follow through. Later on, I found out because I had an uncle that was in the Olympics. And if you look it up, he was in the Olympics
for
gymnast.
Finland.
Yeah, he was in the Olympics with Jesse Owen, and he was in the Olympics. He competed
Berlin and all, right? 36.
Yeah,
back then.
He competed in the Berlin Olympics, and I think, did he come to the U.S.? I'm not sure, but he was in the 30s, and he was a gymnast. He used to do the rings, and his name is Uosikkinen. If you look up, actually, it's we used to call him Matti Uosikkinen, but it's Martti Uosikkinen. But he only lived to be in his 40s because a lot of people didn't live that long back in the day.
Right.
But he was a guy that was written about, and I realized my gymnastic DNA must have come from him. Because from the day I was like a kid, I could stand on my hands, and I could do things that were like, and it had to come from somewhere.
Yeah, right.
And so that was always, but I didn't really work at it. So, what happened, music came into my life.
Right.
And when I found that, I was like, I was immediately in love with the work.
That's it.
I did not mind working at it.
No, it wasn't work then, right?
No, and to this day, I wish I had.
Yeah, you got a full schedule, right?
Yeah, I love working at playing.
And you're how old? 63.
I'm 63.
Yeah, you look great, man.
Thank you.
Good energy.
I got something. I got vitiligo. I don't know if anybody said about my color. It's so weird. One day I just changed colors, and it's a weird thing. It's that thing that Michael Jackson. I mean, he made it famous because of being who he was. And unfortunately, now he got another crap.
Right.
But the thing of it is that he would cover it up. Because maybe if I was younger, I would be more concerned about it because I got it 5 years ago, and it's just a skin condition. Your pigment changes. One day I looked, I went, I'm completely white. What happened?
Surprise.
It's kind of freaky, but it works for rock and roll, man. It works for rock and roll.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So what are you up to now? I know you got.
I got a couple of. Me and Cliff Hillis, who plays in the Pocket, are finishing up the In the Pocket live record that we did at the Keswick Theater that Andy played at, and all those great guys: Tommy Conwell, Ben Arnold, Jeffrey Gaines joined us, Winkle, and Charlie Ingwe. It's just an amazing group of people, Ken Queter, and we're finishing up that live record. We have a show at the Ardmore Music Hall on April 6th.
Great. And
then I'm working with my friend Glenn Goss in Los Angeles for something called Rock for Life, which is a fundraiser at Bay Shiva, which is a place that is a treatment center. They got 2 recording studios in there. They really, the thing of it is that they help people recover is they find out what they're passionate in. Like if you're a musician or you wanted to be a musician, they help these people that are in trouble. So it's a fundraiser where really great musicians are going to come. We're still looking for a headliner to do that, but Charlie Ingwe and Greg Davis and Kenny and Neil Larson, who played with Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
Recently, I heard he's been playing with Elvis Costello. He's going to join us, and Glenn Goss, who has a great record out, by the way, called "Songs from the Rehab," which were done at that rehab, and I recorded them.
So it's in L.A.
It's in L.A. on May 18th.
Wow,
yeah,
that's
it's quite,
cool,
and the rabbi there at Bay Shiva is just a remarkable guy, and it's getting huge support. And we're going to go play, and we're going to raise money, and they're going to do an auction and try to bring in the funds because they scholarship people to come in there.
Right.
Like because what happens to an addict a lot of time is they're broke because they spent all their money on drugs.
Right.
And this guy, he embraces anybody that just needs help.
And what's it called? Bay Shiva?
Bay Shiva. It's a
Shiva.
B-E-I-T. There's a large T, a capital T with an apostrophe thing, and it says Shiva. I think that's S-H-U-V-A-H.
Okay.
And
so
it's a great place.
Somebody could find that if they needed to, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So somebody can check that out and maybe take a look at it.
Yeah,
find
oh yeah,
more
yeah. If you go
information?
to, I think Bay Shiva, or they could look for Rock for Life. I think that's they're thinking, putting stuff up on the internet now, and it's going to be great now. I think Eric Bazillion has come into play from
Great.
Sweden.
Yeah.
He lives in Sweden now. I don't see
does
him
he?
that
Is he over
much.
there?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that makes it interesting for getting. I used to play with him almost every day. When I lived in California for 20 years, and I came back here, and then when I got back, we were playing almost every day, and then he moved to Sweden.
Yeah.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, well, that's how it is, right?
Yeah.
So what else, though? So you're doing the In the Pocket thing.
I got In the Pocket. The Hooters are going to Europe in May for a week, only doing a couple shows. Then the Hooters are playing over the summer, and then next fall we do some dates here. Well, I understand, like we got I can't announce certain dates, but some stuff coming up that's really cool.
So for the Hooters in
for
the
Hooters
States.
in the fall,
cool. Yeah.
and then next year, as I was telling you, it's our 40th anniversary. So we're gearing up for a bigger tour next year. So I have to stay healthy
nice and
so
fit.
I can do it.
Maybe do a little concert after an Eagles game or something, huh, Davey?
Man,
Even though our boy Nicky's leaving.
Yeah.
Our boy Nicky.
Well, I got hope. I think Carson's going to find his way, and I think that now I heard that Deshaun Jackson is going to be on the team, which is really great. And they got that guy, Malik Jackson.
Yeah.
I
think Carson Wentz is going to come back strong.
I love that
mentally
guy.
and physically.
I love that guy.
I love him too.
Yeah,
it's just you hate to see you want them both.
Yeah.
It's like
we were
want to have
spoiled.
both.
Who gets that?
Yeah.
Who the last time?
But Eddie's in Florida now, my brother.
Yeah,
so he's got Jacksonville because he's in Amelia Island. So he's going to be loving having Nick Foles down there. Yeah. I'll have to text him later.
Back in the day, I remember the Niners had Montana and Steve Young on the team. And that was like a nice problem to have. Quarterback comes down. Let's bring in this
your
guy.
Your backup is amazing.
Yeah,
cool.
Amazing. It's good stuff.
So you got In the Pocket. You're working with Rock for Life. Rock for Life. Yeah.
I just, it's funny. I think I was telling you, I did a commercial recently, which was really unusual.
Oh yeah. Tell us about that.
I got I have a friend of mine. It happened through Glenn Goss because I went and sat in one night in Los Angeles where he does these shows, and he said, "Would you take a meeting with a guy that is doing a commercial?" And I'm like, "What do I know about commercials?"
Yeah, right.
He said, "Well," and I ended up co-producing the music with him, and it was for a company that does non-invasive cosmetic surgery.
Okay.
And we recorded the song "Tighten Up" by Archie Bell and Rose, which was a riot. And we went to Paramount.
So Tighten Up for non-invasive surgery.
I said, "Can I get down? I want to do a little lift right here." That's what
I'll
happened.
take one too, David.
But you look great. You kidding me, man? See, all of a sudden, I'm like drooping. And
shit, we all are.
But
it's just life, brother, right?
Yeah, and it was fun being back there. And the cool thing is that when we record, we all go in the same room. We play together because we like doing it that way, and everybody's so good that we cut, and it was fun. And that kind of got the Rock for Life thing going because once those guys heard the guys that came with me from In the Pocket, they were like, "Can we get those guys?" And they were in. It's just a fun journey right now.
Yeah,
I don't know what's coming next. I know what my schedule is work-wise with my bands, but like we were talking, you just got to be willing and open-minded to see what your next opportunity is.
That's it, right?
Because sometimes, that can work in a negative way too.
Yeah,
The wrong choice for the
where you
wrong
gotta
people.
be aware, right?
You got to be knowing what's happening, and I think that, another really cool thing that I love doing is I've been helping out at the School of Rock in Berwyn on Mondays, working with the kids. Man, some of these kids are so talented and so good, and so
shy. I saw you working with somebody too, one of your drummer students.
I got a bunch of
autism, maybe.
Oh, that's oh God, oh my God, I just had a complete brain freeze.
That's all right, but that was
He's
powerful,
an amazing kid. Remarkable drummer.
Great work you're doing.
Oh my God! Yeah, I mean, it just blew me away because I actually his mother Lindsay sent me a note and was telling me about him, and she said he has trouble playing All You Zombies. And I said, well, I'll come over and show it to him.
Yeah.
I said, yeah. I drove out, I played, and I fell in love with him. He was just such a beautiful kid, and he played, and he was good.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about being on the spectrum is that these kids are incredibly bright and sharp and listeners, and he had my parts better than me.
Yeah.
I just had to show him what I was doing. Once I did, he goes, "Oh, I got it." And he was playing. Yeah. Remarkable. Matthew. That's it, Matthew. Remarkable kid.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to do great things in his life. I don't think about autism and Asperger's. As Asperger's, that's a remarkable thing because some of these kids are so talented and they have this condition, but once they get into a work environment, they usually surpass everybody
excel.
there.
Yeah, they can
They're
really
like
do
special,
pretty good.
very special.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm always I have a couple kids like that. Ty and one of my students, they have, later on that I find out. I didn't even know it until his father told me, because he saw the video of me working with Matthew. He said, by the way, Ty is on the spectrum. I went, I thought something was up.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a little one day I played him this Jimi Hendrix thing, and I had him play it, and he picked it up like that. He heard it, and I was like, wow.
Yeah,
I'm amazed at some of these, and that's just, again, the willingness to overcome those kinds of conditions. That you got to be willing. You got to be open-minded and willing, and that's a tough thing. I remember that was tough for me. But once I got over the hurdle, it's like, bring it on.
Yeah,
let's
go. Yeah, no, I do know what you mean, man. I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you as we wrap up here in a minute, so I'll let you think. 2 or 3 pieces of wisdom that you would offer to the audience. But before we do, where else can they find you? Facebook?
I have a
Tell
Twitter.
anybody where they can find it.
Yeah, on Facebook, you just Davey Uosikkinen. You can type my name and you can find me. There's an imposter on there, but go to me. You might face and you can go to In the Pocket.
Don't go to the imposter.
David Uosikkinen In the Pocket.
Right.
I have a Twitter. It's I think it's just D Uosikkinen. I do a little bit of tweeting, and I have an Instagram page which is I think it's just drummer David Uosikkinen or David Uosikkinen, which is Uosikkinen.
Yes.
So yeah, man, come on, it's great.
You got it. You
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
So as we wrap up, I've certainly enjoyed it.
I hope
wisdom,
so.
wisdom, right?
Yeah,
is what it's.
It was never associated with me.
Yes,
but I got
well,
it
it is now, brother. It is now. We pick it up on the journey.
Yeah.
So wisdom, I think, is defined as the soundness of judgment or action based on our experiences in life.
Yeah.
Right? And that journey. So the information, the experience. 2 or 3 things as people, whatever age they are, Davey, whether they're high school kids right now, whether they're people 50, 60, and they're in a shitty relationship, their career. What are 2 or 3 things that you would offer to them, right? We don't tell, we just offer.
Yeah, I'll
for them to consider on this journey of life, man.
A big one for me is there's a principle. It's
Yes.
called KISS. And it's it's not the nicest thing, but it says keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, I can complicate things, and when there's a problem, just simplify it.
Right.
Just take a look, and then it's like, because then you can find out what your priorities are.
Yeah, I like that.
What's important.
Yeah, my dad used to talk that a lot.
I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other one would be open-mindedness and willingness.
Yeah.
I think in this journey you have to be like maybe I don't always have the answers, and then I go to somebody that I see that's living a pretty good life, and I trust it, and have some faith.
Yeah.
It's a big thing, man. Faith is a big thing, and that for me is a way I try to live my life.
Yeah.
Love everyone.
Seek support and then go a little bit bigger because there's something else going on.
No question about it, man. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I hear you.
I'm not a big like in that area, but I believe that.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
As
far as talking about it, but it's like, how do I live my life? It's by example.
Yeah.
No,
I get it because with my books.
And that's a great thing that you did, Dan.
Oh, good.
Really good. Anything that you go out there to wants to inspire people. Is a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
I
got some books for you as well.
Because you went through. That's a tough deal, man.
Well, the darkness,
when you
right?
almost lose your life, it's an eye opener. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. But I think it's so key, and it's such a part of who I am, and obviously who you are. And my book's Back from Heaven's Front Porch, and then I met Jesus for a Miller Lite.
Yeah.
When people first see, they think I'm like some holy roller or whatever.
Yeah, you're not.
And I said, but they said it says Jesus. I said, yeah, it says Miller Lite too. They don't go together.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important.
It's kind of like Jesus,
Yeah, exactly. As Davey talked about, there's an energy available to all of us. It's in us. It's not about where you go to church on Sunday or where you don't. Just tap into that because the world needs it, I think, right?
Oh my God, do we ever?
Yeah,
right on. It's just everybody's. Sometimes it's stuff to keep out of all the noise, and my business is a lot of noise, but the noise sometimes can get you in a bad place. So you got to get out of the noise, and the wisdom sometimes is just maybe back off and then take a look from afar.
Right.
And then you can make choices that are better suited for you.
That's right. And surround yourself with some good people.
No question about that either, man. I'm with you.
Well, I have certainly enjoyed it. I think you got some good takeaways. David, you're a special man. I love you, brother.
Much,
Take it easy.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Thank you.
See you guys.
See you.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us for another episode of 11 Minutes to Inspiration. I thought it was just great. I had a really good time doing this one. I'll trust you gained value and insight as you continue to create and harness the tremendous power of inspiration. And as always, I'm wishing you much happiness and fulfillment on this wonderful journey called life.